Welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and KISMA. I'm Nick, and today we're talking about how to stay in your own lane.
Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and KISMA, bringing you ancient wisdom for modern day success so that you can have the mindset to get your life and business set.
As always, thank you for tuning in. And if you're new to the podcast, take a quick second to hit the subscribe button in iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. If you want to get the inside info for this and every episode, as well as some free gifts, go to illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. And now let's dive in to get your mindset for your life and business set. Well, hello, KISMA.
Well, hello. You're very present there with the introduction.
Well, thank you. I've been working on it. We're talking about...
Wait. You've been practicing the introduction to our podcast?
No.
Okay. I was like, wait a minute.
That's not true, actually.
Wait, what's
But I
going
have
on
been
here?
practicing with my voice. And
your voice and your presence.
I wouldn't say practicing, but I've been aware of
Oh, that's good.
being aware
Awareness is a way of practicing.
Yeah.
I like it.
It is, yeah. Mm-hmm. How are you doing?
Very well. I had a call today for my course, The School of Prosperous Thought, which I'm completely in love with. It's been such a gift to create it.
It's a very KISMA name.
It's just the beginning of so much more of a place to have all of this knowledge of the science of prosperity. So brought to you by the School of Prosperous Thought, everyone. If you're interested, send us an email at hello@illuminationpodcast.com.
It's pretty awesome. Highly recommended.
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling very bright and shiny, very buzzed
Yeah,
today.
you were up in the middle of the night meditating for that Waysock moon.
Yeah.
I did mine before bed.
It was, I was up at 2:30. We started the meditation at 3:30 a.m. It's really, really powerful full moon. For anybody who doesn't know about that, it's like the most powerful energy and spiritual energy of the year as the cycle goes, and it happens at the peak of this full moon. And it's pretty intense, and it was great.
Yeah,
it was really
you're
great.
still awake, like you're doing good.
Yeah, I took a little nap after I got home. I got home around 5 from it, and then I was up for a little bit, and then I took a nap, and now I'm like,
ready to go.
I'm in it. Yeah.
I can tell. And this energy, I was talking to my students about it. It doesn't stop today. I feel like
it's not like off.
There's a residue that everyone can welcome during this time. And boy, do we need it.
Yeah, and that's true of any full moon. Like you'll be getting to the peak of it around 3 days before to 3 days after. And it's a really powerful energy. Like there's a reason that they form rituals around these things. It's the rituals are intended to help you access that energy and use it in your life.
Right.
So it's not just about like blissing out, although I did kind of bliss out a little bit.
It's incorporating the energy for the betterment of ourselves.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
So we've had a couple light episodes recently.
Yeah. Last week was my high school people.
Yeah.
You didn't listen to it. It's fun.
And the week before was our Life in Lockdown.
Life in Lockdown.
So we've had a few fun episodes, and we want to kind of change the tone here because there's a couple serious topics that we want to talk about over the next 2 episodes. This one's all about how to stay in your own lane.
And why that's important. It's very important.
Incredibly important. And next week, we're going to talk about anger. Not that I've ever had anger. Stay tuned.
Never.
But we want to talk about staying in your own lane. Just by way of introduction here, as far as
what does that mean?
To me, this is one of the most powerful skills that you can ever develop in your entire life.
And we're not talking about driving the car.
That's right.
Talking about driving ourselves.
That's right. Yeah. Although having worked in downtown Detroit, went to school there for, almost 20 years, I can tell you that it's a very important skill in driving in Detroit. Shout out to my Detroit people. You know what I'm talking about.
Know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty intense there.
Stay in your own lane.
Yeah. Different than here. Yeah. We want to talk about it because it really is that important. If you want peace in your life, it's that important. If you want to be effective at what you do and impacting the lives of others, oddly, Staying in your own lane is a huge piece of that.
Yeah.
And so much more. If you want real spiritual development or real depth to your practice, staying in your own lane, right? And in so many other ways, this is incredibly vital. And while this whole pandemic thing is continuing to unfold, heading into election season, whoever knows what that's going to be like.
Yeah.
More important than ever.
Yeah.
More important than ever. So I cannot overstate the importance of this topic, and really encourage you to not only listen to this episode, but go back and re-listen to it a few times, because I know that you're going to get gems each time. There's going to be reminders in it. Okay. Staying in your own lane.
Okay. What does that mean energetically?
Okay. So I think that's the first thing to talk about is like, well, what is your lane? Like, how do you know what your lane is? What does that mean? Like you said, energetically. And I think it's really helpful to think about it in containers. Everything has an energetic container, and there's big containers, like really, really big containers, like the government.
Yeah.
And then there's like your individual container. You're
Makes
human,
sense.
right? And if you have a family, right? Your partner, your kids, they all have their own individual container. And you can almost even think about that like not just like a bowl, but more like a vortex. Okay. So when you talk about staying in your own lane, it's like really staying stable and grounded in your own space, in your own container,
in all of your energetic fields. Physical, mental, emotional.
That's right.
You're in it.
Yes. And staying in your lane. So it's like, so that it begs the question though. And it's a really important question. What is like, how do I know what my lane is? Right. And one of the things I'm curious, we haven't talked about this yet. I'm really curious your thoughts on this, because this is the way that I've been thinking about it, is in terms of conversations.
Oh man.
Because it's hard to think about the energetics because it's unseen, and you're like, well, it's somebody else's energy, like, and you blame it on other people because you don't feel good or whatever. But if you think about it in conversations, you're really getting onto something, because that's how it shows up, whether it's an internal conversation that's going on inside of you about something, or whether that's an external conversation between you and someone or something else. And when you want to look at where you're getting wrapped into their conversation and losing connection with your conversation, okay, or what's most important to you.
Right.
Now, one of the most powerful things that anybody can have is knowing what you're here to do.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
At least,
although that can change.
It can change. Yes. In this moment, like, what are you here to do?
Right.
What is your life about? If you don't have that kind of clarity, it's really easy to get sucked into everybody else's conversation, and it's nearly impossible to find your way back because you don't know where home is.
You get very, very influenced by everybody else's, what they're here to do.
That's right.
Perception.
Right. So you see this in relationships that become codependent.
Right.
Where people lose themselves in the relationship and they don't know who they are outside of that, right? Or they've lost touch with that maybe over a long period of time, or for all sorts of different reasons. So for whatever reason that relationship maybe splits or ends or changes, then a person goes through a really difficult time trying to find, like, well, wait, like, this was my whole life, and like, now what am I doing?
Right.
It's because they don't have that sense of purpose or groundedness in what they're here to do. And what, really in a more specific way, like, what are your gifts and what are you here to contribute to the world?
Right.
And I can guarantee that it's not going to have to do with anything or anybody else. It's going to have to do with your soul, that deep soul level. This is what I'm here to express.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And I also feel that when people are not knowing, I take them to, okay, the biggest purpose is you're here to be the best version of you.
Right.
So that means whatever you're doing right now in your life, you do it to the best of your abilities.
That's right. That's soul work.
It's a really miraculous way to clear the fog. When you just do whatever you're doing right now to the best of your abilities, if there's another purpose, it shows up.
Best advice ever.
It's when we get pulled into everyone else's. And the thing when you were talking that I just kept hearing is when we stay in our own lane, we take ownership of it. When we stay in our container, we take ownership of it. And when we take ownership of it, we are then working with the spiritual laws as we know and co-creating.
Yeah.
We can't create anything if we're not taking ownership of who we are and what we want.
Yeah. Yeah. That's absolutely right. And to be meticulous in that, you know, as to much as you are able to really treat whatever it is you're doing with that sense of mastery about it, that attention to, you know, to just, I'm going to do this the very best I can, bring my full, you know, my full self to it, you know, as simple as it may be. That is truly soul work. People think like, oh, you know, it's meditating or it's studying or it's like, it's all these different things. Like, no, it's actually that. Right. That's soul work.
Yeah.
So that's first part. If you can connect with that, your chances of staying in your own lane go up dramatically.
And everything else is easier.
Yeah.
Everything else in life is easier.
Yeah. Yeah. Think about this for a second. Imagine, like, think about all the conversations that go on in your head and all the, maybe the unnecessary emails or Facebook comments or whatever that you're exchanging with other people, and all the time and effort and energy that is put into that, whether it's while you're actually doing it or whether it's while you're mulling it around in your head.
Which it takes up energy, everyone.
Which takes up energy and takes up headspace. And you think about, well, what else would you be focused on?
What else could you be thinking?
Yeah. What else could you be thinking? Or maybe you could just be thinking nothing and having some peace in your head. you know, dealer's choice. Like, you can do whatever you want. But think about that. That's what you have the opportunity to recover when you stay in your own lane. All of that energy will come back to you, and you'll get to direct that in a really positive way in your life.
Right.
So really quickly, before we move into like some of the other instructive parts of this and the biggest tool that you have, right? The most amazing human equipment that you have in order to accomplish this, I want to come back and talk about these like vortexes. Okay, the big ones in particular. Okay. Because what we're seeing, this is a huge example of the whole thing.
Are we talking about an alien vortex or what?
It's like an energy vortex. Think about it like a tornado.
I was joking.
Oh.
Okay. But I know. Yeah. Okay.
Well, those, I mean.
They exist.
I was just in it. I didn't get your joke. Okay. It took me, I was
excited about the vortex.
I was getting fired up.
Back to your vortex.
Okay. So.
At hand.
We thinking about these things in containers, like now we're in the midst of the pandemic. Okay. And we're at a point right now, as of the recording of this, where a lot of conspiracy theories are coming out. More and more conspiracy theories are coming out, and certain people feel a certain way. Certain people are looking at it another way. Certain people are like questioning everything and going down all the rabbit holes because they want to know the truth. And there's more and more conspiracy theories. And what we're seeing right now is they're shutting down certain, videos and posts and things. Like the social media platforms are policing that more heavily because they're mindful about, well, what's substantiated and what's not. And and then that gives rise to a whole other conspiracy theory of like, they're censoring the information and all this stuff. And first and foremost, like, I get it. Like, you're right to ask questions about these things.
Absolutely.
We're 100% not saying don't ask questions about those things. But
and I will individually say I'm 100% behind the frustration of how the information has been, what's the word? Disseminated upon us.
Oh, yeah.
By the so-called experts. I am frustrated and.
Yeah. And this is nothing new.
Yes.
This is the same problem that's been growing for many, well, I wouldn't say many, but several years now with all sorts of breakdowns in this.
Well, and probably, I mean, it's a whole other podcast, but as cable news became 24-hour and became very divisive, I think then we knew that whatever information was coming out, like, what are you going to believe? But anyways,
that's right.
Back to asking questions.
Well, forget about all the reasons that this happened and just look at the energy of it.
Right.
So you've got like people are like railing against the government. Okay. The government this and the government that. The government is a massive energetic force. And your little energetic force is fighting against that. Okay. And so what you're actually doing whenever you fight against something is you feed it.
Lots of energy.
So they just everything that you have, and they say what you resist persists, right? The reason that exists energetically is because it doesn't matter which side of the coin you're on, you're feeding the same vortex. So you've got two people arguing about let's say, for example, the government. They're arguing about the government. One's like, no, they're doing everything right. And the other one's like, it's horrible and they're taking over our lives. And they're both arguing this. Well, both of those entities, both of those people are feeding energy into it. And the vortex of the government is indifferent. It takes the energy because it's just energy and it uses it to perpetuate itself.
Yep.
Okay. Now that's true of the pharmaceutical industry. It's true of the media. It's true of every individual and everything in between. A business does this. A business is an energetic entity right on down to the individual level. So it comes back down to staying in your own lane.
Right.
Right.
So the question then, probably some of our listeners are asking, how do we stay in our own lane and also get the information that we're required to have in order to be safe, to be healthy, to be wise, to be up to date? You know, I personally watch certain videos and then there's others I won't watch because I know they're not substantiated. So I'm very careful what I watch and doubly, triply careful what I would share with the client.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think that things can get highly exacerbated right now. So I think we do have to use our intellect to answer my own question, a very strong intellect of asking questions. I personally will do research and read and then look at all of it and figure out what's my truth, what's working for me.
Right. Yeah. It's an individual choice. And so coming back to that idea of conversations, when you're feeling like I should know more, or I should be researching this, or I should be like, when you start to get into the shoulds, that is something inside of yourself that you want to question right off the bat, because that should is very likely somebody else's conversation about what you should or should be doing, like how you should go about informing yourself or live your life for that matter, which is essentially what we're talking about, because we're talking about how you spend your energy. Right. But that's your life. So those are the hooks of the conversations. So that's where I think a lot of people really get confused of, like, on the one hand, they know that they feel like crap exhausting themselves doing this and how frustrating it is. And on the other hand, they're like, but I feel like I should know more, or I should do this, or I should do my due diligence, you know? And that's where they just wind up down the rabbit hole.
So what I see happening, just to kind of come full circle to this, is I'll watch people grab a video, put it on social media, and with an extreme amount of anger and rage, there's a whole thread of people going against each other, against the video, against the government, whatever. And again, I'm not here to say that just take it and roll and not to feel your emotions. What I want for everyone to think about is when the emotion is one of rage, or you're taking your own energy and throwing it at, say, the government or someone else, you're depleting yourself. You're depleting yourself, and your own healing will not happen when you're raging on something else.
That's right.
So back to your own lane is, what do you need to do to stay healthy or to heal? And it's going to have a lot more to do with loving kindness and compassion of self, forgiveness of others, and to really focus on you.
Yeah. When it comes down to it, our lanes are probably a lot more narrow than we think.
Narrow, very narrow, very small. And have the people that you trust and you ask questions, but to grab something and run with it and then to create rage, it's coming back to you. Now, having said that, there are people whose mission is to check the government, is to check, like, that's why they're on the planet. I'm not talking about even, I'm like, this is them. If you're one of those, if you're an activist, go at it.
That's right.
But if you're getting pulled into that and that's not your purpose, come back to your lane and get really clear on your own healing energy, your prosperity energy, because that's what's going to get you through any challenge, let alone what we're going through now.
Yeah. What's most important to you?
Exactly.
what's most important to you. And you keep asking that for yourself if you don't know what that is. And even if you do, to keep recentering on it. And just a message for our activists out there, because I know that we have some who listen, and that's awesome. You need more care than you think.
Right. The objectivity is what will give you power.
Yeah, because you're driving yourself. If you're bringing that kind of emotion to it, and driving it from an emotional place, and from that sense of righteousness, what you're doing is expending a lot of excess energy that is coming, whether you realize it or not, from your own physiology. Right. So your adrenals will take a hit. You will get exhausted. When you're tired, you'll become emotional about things. The anger and the frustration, which we're going to talk about next week, like all of those things, you're at the bottom line is you're not in a resourceful place to lead your charge.
Yeah.
So you need like probably 10 times as much care, and you need 10 times as much skill with tools in order to accomplish that.
Right. Absolutely agree. It's powerful.
It is, yeah. But I know that's not my gig. That's the reason if you go on my Facebook page, you won't see me talk about politics. It's just not my gig. It's not because I don't care. It's not because I am irresponsible around it. It's just because that is not my conversation.
So what I want to share, if any of you listening are at a loss of who to go to, who to talk to, what information to get, email us, hello@illuminationpodcast.com. We do have resources. If you're looking for healing, energy, emotional, email us. It's right here, the resources to do that. But even in terms of like, I'm not sure. I mean, I've got great people in my circle that I can connect you with, suggestions who to follow, everything that, again, you have your intellect. So you're asking the right questions and you're going deep in your own care and not giving your energy away to something that is going to take it and just grow.
Yeah. And that's one piece I'd like to kind of close on is asking the right questions. This is a skill, right? And it's like a Google search. So if you put in a really vague Google search or a weird Google search, you're going to get some very vague or weird results. Okay. But if you know how to do a good inquiry, you'll get exactly what you need in an instant. Okay. And that's really important to know, because those questions that you're asking, you want to be asking the same questions very mindfully. Now, to me, the most important thing for all of us here is to evolve ourselves. Like, we came in for a reason. We're playing it out together in this world. Actors on a stage just playing out our role, and we want to play that role as brilliantly as we can. So that's why it's so important to know what your role is first and foremost, but then to play it with your very best effort and asking the questions that will help to lead you to higher ground. Right. And so when you start to ask those questions, is the government controlling me? Is it all a conspiracy? Is it, big pharma? Is it this, is it the anti-vaxxers? Is it like whoever that you're, is it the Republicans, the Democrats, or all the little trails, and not so little, like those are
big trails,
huge vortexes of energy, right? That you're just feeding every which way. When you start to ask those questions, you got to ask yourself, like, is that going to help you be the best version of you? Is that going to help you bring your very best into the world and to do what you're here to do? That's one litmus test for me. And that's what's, I think, so humbling about realizing, oh man, like my lane is pretty narrow.
and the other piece to that is when you're consistently staying in your own lane, your intellect will allow you to ask powerful questions and not be taken out by them, not do it out of rage, not do it out of you'll just be like, you'll be very present to the question and to the answers. So you will receive wiser answers.
Yes. Yeah. There's so much more available, that we just will never hear when we're asking from a place of deep confusion, or overwhelm or anger or frustration or whatever.
So I have an illuminated thought.
I can't wait to hear it.
Your lane is probably way more narrow than you thought, yet way more powerful.
Ooh, I like that.
So go with the narrow and the powerful, everyone.
Yep.
It's your time.
If you've got somebody in your life that is getting out of their lane,
send them this episode.
Sneak them a link. Say, hey, I think you might like this.
Sneak a link.
Yeah. And we thank you so much, everybody, for being a part of Illumination Podcast, for listening and for sharing. We love you. We want you to stay safe and happy and healthy, and we're here for you.
Namaste. Hey, thanks for jamming with us today. And if you enjoy Illumination Podcast, please go ahead and share it with someone you love. Give us a rating, review, download our podcast. And remember, you can find us at illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. Talk to you soon. Namaste.